Get ready for non-stop laughs and outrageous moments, Quagmire's unforgettable moments. Now, it all begins when Quagmire heads out for the night, looking for a good time, but let's be real. For Quagmire, good time usually means crossing a few lines, and that's exactly what happens here. He ends up doing something so Quagmire, and gets himself arrested. And no, this isn't just some slap on the wrist. The guy is facing serious charges, and for once, he can't just wink his way out of trouble. So here's Quagmire.
There's not even a defense for statutory rape. Once the girl proves her age, that's it. You're guilty.
You know what I tried today? A fig.
I have a hearing tomorrow morning. I may have to go to jail.
He knows he needs help, and there's only one person left to call. But here's the kicker. That person is his mom. Yep, you heard me right. Quagmire's mom. This is the last person he ever wanted to call for help, but he's got no choice. Now if you're thinking, wait, what's Quagmire's mom like? Oh, you're in for a treat. When we first meet her, you can tell right away where Quagmire gets his personality from. Crystal Quagmire, ladies and gentlemen, is a whole character on her own. Imagine a woman who's lived a life just as wild as her son's, maybe even wilder. Crystal is bold, she's loud, and she's definitely not someone who's easily shocked. Let's just say, Quagmire didn't exactly pick up his unique skills on his own. His mom is a legend in her own right, and in a weird way, she's kind of proud of her son for being, well, him. When Crystal shows up to help Quagmire, she's not even fazed by the situation. She's almost casual about it. I mean, here's Quagmire, sweating bullets, thinking his life is over, and his mom is just standing there like it's a regular Tuesday. And right off the bat, you can see that this is going to be awkward for Quagmire. But he has no choice. He needs her help. And Crystal? She's ready to jump in without even asking too many questions. She's like, all right, let's get you out of here. There's no judgment, no scolding. She just sees this as part of the ride. And right away, you start to see this mother-son dynamic that's totally unique. There's no, I told you so, no guilt trips. She's just ready to roll up her sleeves and help him out, no matter what. And you have to wonder, how many times has she done this before? It's like she's used to this, like she's bailed him out of crazy situations his whole life. Honestly, you start to get why Quagmire is the way he is. As they start working on his defense, the episode brings in some classic Family Guy humor. Crystal goes all out, talking about her own crazy stories and making Quagmire look like a saint in comparison. She's casually telling stories that are so wild, they make Quagmire's actions seem almost normal, and you can see Quagmire just cringing every time she opens her mouth. He's embarrassed, but at the same time, he's kind of in awe of her. Now, let's talk about the courtroom scene. This is where things get intense. Quagmire is basically hanging on by a thread, and it seems like the judge has it out for him. But then, Crystal steps in. And when I say she steps in, I mean she takes over. She's defending her son with everything she's got, and it's like she's on a mission. Her speech is bold, it's fearless, and it's absolutely hysterical. Crystal pulls out stories and defenses that you would never in a million years expect to hear in a courtroom. She's not playing by the rules. She's making her own rules, and you can see the judge and the lawyers just sitting there stunned. It's like they don't know what hit them. And Quagmire? He's just sitting there, trying not to hide under the table. He's embarrassed, he's impressed, and he's probably regretting every life choice that led him to this moment. But hey, that's Quagmire for you. Through it all, though, you start to see this softer side of Quagmire. So here's how it all starts. Peter's hanging out with Death. Yeah, Death himself, the Grim Reaper.
Let me go back in time and be 18 again. What are you, high? No!
Coming up next on ESPN.
And Peter's feeling a little down. He starts thinking about his life and all the choices he's made. You know how it goes, right? Sometimes you just wonder, what if I'd done things differently? And for Peter, that question gets pretty specific. He wonders what life would have been like if he hadn't married Lois so young, if he'd stayed single for a while, had a few more wild nights, and maybe just lived the bachelor life a bit longer. Now here's where things get interesting. Peter asks Death if he could go back to the 80s for one night to live it up as a single guy. And surprisingly, Death agrees. Yeah, he's just like, sure, why not? So they shake on it, and bam. Peter's back in 1984 with his mullet, his mustache, and his whole young and free attitude. But the guy doesn't realize that even the smallest change he makes here could mess up the future. He's just out there, partying, doing his thing, not a care in the world. And of course, he screws things up big time. What does Peter do? He decides not to marry Lois. He thinks he's being smart, making this decision for his future self. But here's the catch. By choosing not to marry Lois, he changes everything. Not just for himself, but for everyone he knows. And here's where Quagmire comes into the picture in a big way, because in this new reality, guess who ends up marrying Lois? Yep, Quagmire. And let me tell you, he's loving it. Quagmire is living the life he's always dreamed of, with Lois by his side, a family, a home, the whole package. Now picture this. Peter returns to the present, expecting everything to be the same. But instead, he finds that Quagmire is married to Lois.
Chris, say hi to Mr. and Mrs. Griffin.
Hi, Mr. Griffin.
How's it going, man?
Chris! Stewie! Oh my god! Alright, don't freak out, Peter. Don't freak out like you did when your goldfish died. Here you...
This is Quagmire at his finest. He's grinning from ear to ear, giving his little eyebrow waggles, and throwing out his classic giggity lines, just absolutely soaking in the fact that he's got everything Peter used to have. Now let's talk about how Quagmire acts in this new role. He's not just filling in for Peter, he's owning it. Quagmire's the man of the house now, and he's taking full advantage of it. He's got that classic Quagmire confidence. You know, that mix of charm and I'll say what I want and I don't care who hears it. He's treating Lois like his queen, and Lois, in this new reality, is actually kind of into it. And Peter? He's losing his mind. Imagine walking back into your life only to find your best friend sitting in your chair, with your family, and totally owning it. Yeah, Peter's not handling it well. But for Quagmire, this is a dream come true. He's finally got what he's always wanted. All those years of being the third wheel, the guy who could never quite get Lois to look his way, now he's got it all. And he's not shy about rubbing it in either. Every chance he gets, Quagmire's showing Peter just how great his new life is. He's bragging, he's strutting around, and he's pulling out all his best moves to keep Lois happy. And for once, Quagmire's not sneaking around or getting himself into trouble. He's actually being a responsible guy. Well, as responsible as Quagmire can be, anyway. Watching Quagmire in this role is pure comedy gold. Peter finally decides he's had enough. He can't just sit back and watch Quagmire live out his dream life. He's going to make sure he marries Lois, no matter what it takes. Back in the 80s, Peter does everything he can to make sure Quagmire doesn't end up with Lois. Finally, after a whole bunch of hilarious back and forth between Peter and Quagmire, Peter manages to make things right. He wins Lois back, and he returns to the present with his life back to normal. Alright, let's jump into Family Guy Season 15, Episode 3, American Gigolo. But then, totally out of the blue, his airline shuts down. Just like that. One day he's got a career. He's flying high, literally and figuratively. And then suddenly, he's grounded. No job, no paycheck, nothing. And for Quagmire, this is a total nightmare. Now, if you know Quagmire, you know he's not exactly the desk job kind of guy. He's not about to settle down with some boring routine. He needs something exciting, something that lets him be himself.
Geez, I gotta go home and change into my Tarzan costume. For the web.
I gotta get a computer.
Book. He's keeping a schedule, setting appointments. So Quagmire starts getting clients, and at first, it's all smooth sailing. He's in his element, charming people left and right, throwing out his classic lines. He's doing what he does best, and he's getting paid for it. Life is good. But then things start getting a little complicated. The clients keep coming, and they're not exactly what Quagmire expected. Some of them are way more demanding than he planned for, and some of them are, well, not his type at all. He's barely sleeping, he's constantly on the go, and it's starting to wear him down. But even though he's tired and frustrated, but it's turning out to be a total disaster. Finally, after all this chaos, Quagmire... So, the next episode starts with the guys, Peter, Quagmire, Cleveland, and Joe, heading out for a regular night on the town. They're at a nightclub, doing what they do best, hanging out, having drinks, and enjoying a little break from their everyday lives. For Quagmire, this is just another chance to work his charm. He's scanning the crowd, eyeing potential dates, and you can see he's already planning to make his move. After a few drinks, Quagmire spots a woman across the room who catches his eye. When he wakes up the next morning, Quagmire is totally disoriented. Then he glances over, and there she is, the woman from the club. And she's got a big smile on her face.
You mean?
That's right, baby. As of last night, we're man and wife. By the way, I need you to call my pimp and tell him I quit.
Oh my God, I married a hooker?
That's when it hits him. He's married. Quagmire's reaction is pure gold. He's panicking, trying to make sense of what just happened. He remembers bits and pieces, the drinks, the dancing, the chapel, but he can't believe it actually happened. This is Quagmire, the ultimate bachelor, the guy who lives for freedom, and now he's stuck in a marriage he didn't plan, with a woman he barely knows. Her name, as he soon learns, is Charmise, and she's ready to dive headfirst into this marriage. Meanwhile, Quagmire's brain is screaming, "Get out!" Quagmire tries to play it cool at first. He figures maybe he can talk his way out of this, explain that it was all a big mistake, and get Charmise to agree to end it. But Charmise isn't letting go that easily. She's thrilled to be married to Quagmire and has already started talking about their future together. And every time she mentions something about their life, you can see Quagmire's face getting more and more horrified. He's never been the commitment type, and now he's trapped in the ultimate commitment. He tries everything to get out of it. First, he politely suggests an annulment, saying, "Hey, maybe this was just a crazy night. Let's just forget it happened." But Charmise isn't having it. She's excited, she's committed, and she's not letting Quagmire slip away that easily. She's already talking about moving in together, setting up a life, and you can see Quagmire is on the verge of a full-blown meltdown. He's thinking, how did I get myself into this? Quagmire starts asking his friends for advice. He's desperate, hoping someone has a way out of this mess. But nothing seems to work. Peter suggests some of his classic out-of-the-box ideas, but they're not exactly helpful. And Quagmire? He's just sitting there watching his independence slip away, one piece at a time. Every time he tries to say something, Charmise just waves it off like, "Oh honey, it's fine, you'll get used to it." And Quagmire's sitting there thinking, decides to let Quagmire go, and you can see the relief on his face. He's finally free. He's ready to go back to his single life, ready to leave this whole mess behind. But there's a hint that maybe, just maybe, this experience has changed him a little. He's learned that marriage is definitely not for him, at least not anytime soon. And as he walks away, you can tell he's never going to forget this experience. So we start with Quagmire living his usual life. He's doing what he does best. It all begins when Quagmire is out in town and spots Sonia. Right away, Quagmire, this is new territory. He's used to being the one who's always in charge. She's matching his energy, even pushing him a little further than he's used to. And he finds himself drawn to her in a way he didn't expect. As they start spending more time together, things start to get intense. Sonia is out to Quagmire, calling him, texting him, wanting to know where he is and what he's doing. Now he's nervous, constantly checking his phone and looking over his shoulder like he's being watched. Peter, of course, tries to make a joke out of it, but you can tell he's a little concerned. Even Joe, who's usually pretty serious, is giving Quagmire this look. He's had a taste of what it's like to be on the other side of the kind of intensity he usually brings to his relationships. And while he's glad to be out of it,